When you look at government data, the picture that emerges is that Asian Americans aren't struggling with addiction as much as other communities. But the people I've been talking to working on the front lines of this issue say that doesn't reflect the reality.
This drug thing, it's like a roller coaster. It goes high and low as you want it to. It's a battle, you know?
A lot of the resources focus on other populations. I didn't think that there was anything specific for me.
By and large, policymakers are comprised of white men who often are not aware of our 47 distinct ethnic groups.
So inevitably, communities are going to be left out.
Oh, absolutely, and they fall through the cracks for sure.
Asian Americans are the fastest growing ethnic group in the United States. That's according to the Pew Research Center. And that also means a growing demand for resources. But experts say a lack of government funding and cultural stigmas in the community are keeping issues like addiction and mental health in the dark. Do-Hui Lee came to the US from Korea when he was 3 years old. He says he struggled to fit in after moving to LA and started using drugs when he was in college. How are you feeling right now?
Kind of still a little nervous. Just like opening up, dealing with mental issues.
Yeah.
Dealing with drugs, just kind of alien and foreign to myself, especially like meth, which is big right now.
I met Do-Hui at Elysian Park for a morning hike with members of Nanum, the rehab center where he lives. He told me over the phone before we met that he had relapsed 2 weeks before.
Gave me a sense of power when I had the drugs, when I was selling drugs or had a lot of drugs. I felt like a powerful person. So, yeah, I don't feel like that anymore.
How's recovery been like recently?
I just drink a little bit on the side from all the stress. I'm trying to do all that right now while going to school and living at a sobriety house.
Are you feeling like you're strong enough to...
Yeah, what doesn't kill me makes you stronger, right?
Do-Hui is just one of about 50 people living at Nanum Christian Fellowship. It's a Korean church that also operates as a free rehab center in LA. Nanum is open to anyone, no matter your ethnicity or religion, but it primarily serves Korean Americans. According to some government studies, their rates of substance abuse are higher than other Asian groups in the US. Experts say that's due to a number of factors, including the pressure for Korean Americans to fit into a narrow mold of success. Pastor Young Ho Han is the founder of Nanum and based the program on his own struggles with addiction. How do you think this center is different than other rehab centers?
We gave them freedoms. Because if they want to leave, can leave.
And if they relapse, they're not kicked out.
You can come back anytime. I always welcome.
Wow.
That's, once they become a drug addict, they need it because they cannot stop right away.
Right.
Even they join the programs, even they stay in the jail, do you think they're not going to do drugs? Come on. I did it. Yeah.
Demand is high for Nanum's free rehabilitation services. Pastor Han says there are about 300 people on the wait list for a bed here. And when one person relapses, he keeps their spot open for a week before offering it to someone new. Most people stay for a minimum of 6 months, and while living here, each person is expected to follow the same basic schedule: a morning hike, chores, Bible study, journaling, and worship services in both Korean and English, including a service for parents of Nanum residents.
I tried to kill myself.
And so that's when you turned to Christianity.
It's so hard to describe, but somehow God gave me a second chance.
Why did you want to start a church?
I went to rehab center, 3 different rehab centers. I pay a lot of money because I want to stop doing drugs. The rehab center cannot change people's life. I really hate to say this, but American rehab, they go by the rule and regulation, just like a jail. People who stay in jail, did they change people's life? No. So many people recover from Nanum. I served this church for 23 years. And once they leave, somehow they become a doctors or DA or lawyers or dentists. They succeed. Amen.
Los Angeles has the largest population of Asians in the country, but Nanum is still just one of a handful of rehab programs that gear their services toward Asians and Pacific Islanders struggling with addiction. The Asian American Drug Abuse Program, or Adap, was the first of its kind in California when it opened in 1972. After a string of drug overdoses among young people, the community rallied together to get funding for the center.
This was a hotel. It was called Crenshaw Hotel, and it was a house of prostitution and a shooting gallery for heroin addicts. And Adap was able to purchase it and convert it into a drug treatment center with 30 beds.
Interesting.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the environment when Adap started?
During the 60s, Asian Americans were doing what everybody else was doing. Flower power, sex, drugs, rock and roll, free love, substance, getting high, and just experimentation overall. But there was also an aspect of trauma during that time. Some Asian Americans went to Vietnam to fight in the war. Can you imagine looking like the enemy, being deployed in a country where you're killing people who look like you? So many veterans came home with deep, chronic, profound PTSD and turned to alcohol and other drugs to deal with that.
And what do you think that generational trauma looks like?
Oof. We see a lot of clinical depression. We see a lot of suicide. We see forms of eating disorders and domestic violence and gang violence too.
A 2017 study from the Department of Health and Human Services reported that only 3.8% of Asians in the U.S. struggled with substance use disorder, compared to the national average of 7.2%. But advocates say that number is likely much higher, since underreporting is a widespread problem.
Are you surprised that there's still such a lack of resources today?
So by and large, policymakers are comprised of educated white men who often are not aware of the nuances of our 47 distinct ethnic groups. Their policies reflect that lack of knowledge.
So inevitably, communities are going to be left out.
Oh, absolutely, and they fall through the cracks for sure. There's no quick Band-Aid for it.
The struggles with addiction for Asians in the U.S. are as diverse as the communities themselves. Yvette Enrique is a Filipino-American woman living in South LA. She battled a methamphetamine addiction for over 2 decades. Now she works at Adap, helping others with substance abuse. We visited her at the home she shares with her sister to find out what that journey looked like.
So when did it start to become an issue for you?
Well, I quit my job. I didn't know I was going to quit nursing yet. So I was about 26 and I realized I do have a problem. There was a point where I was 89 pounds. So yeah, it was hard to hide. It was hard to hide. There was something wrong.
Yvette says her methamphetamine addiction started in her early 20s and continued throughout nursing school. She says she felt ashamed and isolated herself from her family.
I know that the sense of hiya or shame is a huge part of our culture. And so I'm curious as to how that played out in your struggle.
Yeah, that played a big part because, of course, on the outside, we're supposed to look like everything's okay. I was a nurse. I put myself through school, and my parents were so proud of that. And then it got to where I was addicted. But even though I quit nursing, they still always brought up the fact that I'm still a nurse.
They were holding on to it.
Yeah. So you talk about hiya. So there's another adverse thing to feeling hiya, and that's when your family says you're sayang. right? Or what a waste. And so that's basically why I stopped coming around.
So many photos here.
Yeah, too bad I'm not in any of them.
You're not?
No, these are the years that I've been missing. So like this one, all my cousins are there and my sister, and we're all sisters. So those two are sisters, those two are sisters, and then there's my sister.
sister is missing.
And I'm gone.
So are you in any of the photos here?
Oh, she's in one. She missed my son's graduation. She missed a big day for my dad and his association in the Filipino Association. She missed my daughter's volleyball games, Christmases. She's in one photo. This is when she first got out, and there she is, right there.
You don't look at Asians and say, oh, addiction.
Or mental health.
Or mental health, because it's something that we don't come out and say. We'll just go ahead and struggle and just try to do it ourselves, and it doesn't work. We need to reach out and get the help we need.
When you were ready to get help, did you feel like there were resources out there for you?
No, because a lot of the resources focus on other populations, but because Asians don't talk about the problem with addiction, it's an embarrassment, one, and it doesn't happen to our family. I didn't think that there was anything specific for me until my sister introduced me to Adap. When I walked through those doors, I felt like I wasn't alone.
How does it feel for you looking at these photos and not seeing her?
Now that I mention it, and you know that she missed so many great moments in my life and in our family's lives, it makes me sad. I think I got over being mad. You know, there was a lot of times where I was angry at her for being selfish and how could she do that. Then I'd get over it and I'd check myself and realize she was just, she was an addict, and it wasn't all her fault. You know, it was the drugs, so. Yeah, but she's here now.
Yeah.
So.